Hello lovely people, and welcome to this little bonus episode of the Not Quite Enough Yarn podcast. My name is Leslie. I normally podcast at the end of each month, but I'm involved in a couple of year-long make-alongs and I wanted to get the information out there as soon as possible. So this be it. Welcome. Thank you for being here. And let's start with all the make-along stuff. So there are two this year. I'm co-hosting two, and the first one I'm going to talk about, I'll put the hashtag on screen, is the Stash Make-Along 2020, the Stash Mail 2020, which I'm co-hosting with the wonderful Barbara from the Flame and Fibre podcast. And this is a continuation of her idea for last year. She suggested the year-long stash knit down last year. And we've had a lot of people say to us that they would like us to continue, and we're delighted to do so. So this first make-along is the Stash Mal 2020. So to be eligible, you've got to work from stash. That's fairly obvious, isn't it? We appreciate that some people may need to buy something just to finish off a project. As long as what you're buying new isn't more than 50% of the total project, that would still be eligible for the make-along. Because we were running this make-along last year as well, we are allowing whips that would have been part of the last year's make-along if you'd had the opportunity to get them finished. So if it's something you just didn't get done by the end of December, you could include it. I mean, obviously we would expect those to be finished kind of sooner rather than later, but they can be included. All yarn crafts are welcome, so that's spinning, knitting, crochet, weaving. Yep, I think that's pretty much everything, so that's all good. And the remit is as wide can be. It doesn't matter if you're making really big things, really small things, as long as it's from stash and you finish it by the end of the year, you'll be eligible. So to enter, we both have threads on our Ravelry groups. So to enter, please become a member of the group if you're not already. Finished object threads are in both groups, they're non-chatter. So if you just please put a picture of your finished object. By all means, put a bit of description around it. Some people have put in how long they've had the stash, what they've been working on, that sort of thing. And that's all great stuff. And multiple dipping is welcome. So put it in Not Quite Enough Yarn, put it in Flame and Fibre, put it in any other make-along that you're involved in if they don't mind double dipping. Because we certainly don't. And if we can have one post per project, please. So if you make 20 items in the year that are all eligible, that's 20 different posts. On the chatter thread, chatter away till your heart's content. As long as it's kind of relating to the make-along. I mean, I'd love to have your recipe for mac and cheese, but that's not where we want it, you know. So I'm joking, you don't have to send me your recipe for mac and cheese. But yes, chatter away, and it can just be a simple, I really like that project, nice work, lovely colours, where did you find the pattern? Any of those things, just reacting to each other, being part of the community. So that is fab. In terms of prizes, we'll draw them using a random number generator, and quarterly on the chatter thread there'll be a pattern prize up to a value of $10 US. The way to claim your prize is to watch the podcast, because that's the only place we're going to announce it, and then get in touch. So via Ravelry, notify on YouTube if you caught it, Instagram if you're on Instagram. That's how we will notify people that they've been successful. So the chatter thread will be a pattern prize which we'll send via Ravelry. The finished object thread prizes will be a physical prize, so often yarn or something very similar, and they'll be sent in the post. So if you're eligible for one of those, we will need a mailing address for you. That's happening every quarter, and at the end of the year we'll have a again, a random number generator draw from everything entered in the year. So it's like a second bite of the cherry, as it were, and there'll be a physical prize to go out to you then. So prize winners will be announced on the podcast, and as you know, I podcast monthly, so I will announce, so say end of Q1, I'll announce at the end of March podcast. I would be grateful, and certainly everyone claimed really quickly last year, but I would be grateful if you could let me know that you've seen it and you're claiming your prize by the 25th of the month following, because that then gives me a chance to redraw it. If it's not claimed, I can redraw it on the next month's podcast rather than having to wait 2 months. So I hope that all makes sense. If you did last year's Stash Cow, it ain't that different, so hopefully it will all be very clear. So that's with Barbara of the Flame and Fibre podcast, and that is the Stash Mal 2020. The other one I'm involved in, my mother always said if I sat on my hands I wouldn't be able to talk, but hello, is being co-hosted, and again, her idea. I have no original ideas, but I'm always happy to join in. This is Kellyanne of Yarn Tales by the Sea. She got in touch and said, would you like to co-host a make-along? Yay! And because we both live by the seaside, clue's in her name, but I live close to the seaside as well, we thought we'd go for a sea, ocean, beach inspired make-along. So we're calling it the Ocean Mal 2020, and very similar rules actually, except this time you don't have to use your stash, so you can go and buy gorgeous yarns or gorgeous fibre and make them into gorgeous projects. So anything inspired by the sea, and we're making that fairly broad. Sea colours, blues, greens, those kind of colours are fairly obvious, but anything beach related, it could be that you make amigurumi octopi, if that's the plural of octopus, or fish, that's definitely okay. You know, anything sea inspired. And even with regards to the colours, we live close to the English Channel. It's not always blue and green. Sometimes it's very dirty grey. So we're quite open-minded on that. If you can relate it to the sea, then as far as I'm concerned, you're eligible. And that may also be the project name or the yarn name. I've got some yarn in the stash called Coral. It's not a particularly seaside colour, but it's called Coral. That would be applicable. Sometimes patterns are called tides or sea or ocean or waves or any of the above. They could have a shell pattern in them. Anything that you can relate to the sea, if you can convince us it's sea related, you are eligible to be part of it and you are welcome to join. Multiple dipping very much encouraged. So both Kellyanne and I will have threads on our Ravelry groups, and similar to the Stash Cow in this respect, finished object thread, which is no chatter, just put a picture up of your item, one post per item. By all means put a bit of description in, especially if it's not an obvious sea connection. You know, if it's bright red, that might not be obviously a sea connection, but it could be that the pattern has a sea related name or something like that. So by all means put that in so that we can understand the connection if it's not an obvious one. Finished object thread is a no chatter thread, but the chatter thread, as its name suggests, chat away. Talk to each other, be part of the community. That makes me so happy when I see people just kind of talking about the projects, encouraging each other, comparing notes. Love it all. Prize system, you've heard all this before, but it works in the same way. So again, the prizes will be announced on the YouTube channel, and that will be the only way they'll be announced. Get in contact with us via Ravelry, or any other kind of social media that you have for us. I mean, I'm on Instagram. People can message me on that. Ravelry is probably safest in terms of being the most likely to get a message through to me for claiming a prize. But, you know, get in touch, however it is. And quarterly, on the chatter thread, there'll be a pattern prize. Again, up to a maximum value of $10 US, one that we can send to you via Ravelry. And there'll also be a physical prize, which we'll need a mailing address for you. And at the end of the year, there will be another draw across the whole year for another physical prize. I think that's pretty much everything. Works in progress. Works in progress are allowed if not more than 50% of the project has been completed by the beginning of this year. So if you were just about to cast off on the 1st of January and you suddenly cast off, you know, a stocking crate blanket, and you made it all last year, that might be taking the mickey a little bit. But if you're halfway through and you finish it, you're welcome. You're very, very welcome. Again, if you're involved in other make-alongs, double, treble, multiple dip, there are lots of great make-alongs going on. I know the wonderful Mars of Hey Brownberry podcast, she's involved in one, and it's a focused stash make-along, which is each quarter has a different subject. So socks for one quarter, shawls for another. So have a look at those. If you're involved in those and the people running those podcasts, those make-alongs are happy for you to multiple dip, we certainly are. So get on in there. We want to make it as inclusive to everyone as possible. So please join in, and it doesn't matter if you're making a little thing, a big thing, a complicated thing, a simple thing. We just can't wait to see what you make. Inspired by the seaside. So I hope that's not too confusing, the fact that I'm talking about two mals in the same bonus episode. And they can be multiple dipped amongst themselves. So just, if it applies, get it in there, because it's just another entry in the drawer. So that would be great. Hope that all makes sense. I will put the rules in the description box below to hopefully make sure, as well as links to Barbara's Flame and Fibre podcast and Kellyanne's Yarn Tales by the Sea podcast channels. And if you have any queries, please do come back to me. I will be going through them in a brief form with each podcast, just to kind of let people know what's going on and remind folks that these are happening. But hopefully that's made sense for the total sets of rules. We've tried to keep it fairly simple, because we've got to administer it, so we don't want it to be particularly complicated. Life is too short. We need to spend that time crafting, not worrying about rules. So I hope that these are of interest. Be lovely to have you join in with us. And it doesn't matter if you do one project or 60 projects. You know, it's just lovely to have you here, to have you joining in. Thank you very much for watching this bonus episode. The normal podcast will be up on the last weekend of January, in which episode I will be announcing the winners of the 2019 Stash Cal. So that will nicely, hopefully, tie that one up for the year as we launch this new one for 2020. Get in touch if anything's unclear. Look forward to seeing all the entries on Ravelry. Really looking forward to seeing your beautiful work. Thanks very much. Take care.